Everything changed in a matter of seconds. Picture this. One moment, you are the absolute deadliest offense in the entire National Football League. You're sitting there at a completely dominant 8-2. The whispers of an MVP award are literally echoing through the concrete halls of Lucas Oil Stadium. You can practically feel the momentum shifting the entire balance of power in the AFC. It feels unstoppable. And then, the very next moment, a fracture, a tear, a sudden violent collapse in the pocket. And just like that, the entire weight of a championship season crashes violently into the turf. Welcome to NFL Nexus. I'm your host, and today we are diving deep into what is arguably the most fascinating, the most high stakes, and absolutely the most volatile situation in the entire league right now, the 2026 Indianapolis Colts. Now, before we unpack this absolute ticking time bomb of a roster, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment down below on what you thought about it. And hey, if you truly want to support the deep dive, cinematic coverage we do here at NFL Nexus, support the channel by becoming a channel member today. We couldn't do it without you. All right, let's dive into the abyss. We are looking at a franchise that possesses a theoretical fortune in elite assets, but man, they are weighed down by some truly terrifying physical liabilities. We're going to look at the ultimate balance sheet today.
The tension humming through the facility at Grand Park Sports Complex right now, it's thick enough to cut with a knife. You can literally feel it in the air. Bleacher Report's Brad Gagnon recently evaluated the atmosphere surrounding this team ahead of training camp, and he used one very specific, very dangerous word to describe it: wishful. The Colts vibe is wishful, Gagnon wrote. Let's be brutally honest for a second here. In the National Football League, hope is not a strategy. Being wishful, that means you are fundamentally insecure about what you've built. It means you are not confident in the foundation beneath your feet. Just picture the scene at Grand Park for a second. You have the general manager stepping up to the press conference podium, forcing a smile, projecting this relentless optimism to all the flashing cameras. But what happens behind closed doors? What happens in the quiet corners of the locker room? There is a quiet, suffocating anxiety. Players are in there taping ankles, strapping on pads, knowing that their entire championship window is precariously balanced on the hope, the mere hope, that medical staffs and rehabilitation timelines actually hold up under the brutal, violent reality of professional football. Make no mistake, the Colts are incredibly talented, but they are desperately, quietly relying on hope.
So how exactly did they get to this massive, precarious tipping point? Here is our structural roadmap for today's explainer. Number 1, playoffs or bust. Number 2, the untradeable elite core. Number 3, the Buckner investment. Number 4, the Daniel Jones dilemma. And finally, number 5, the 2026 season outlook.
Section 1, playoffs or bust. Let's talk about the stakes for 2026. When training camp officially opens on July 29th, I need you to understand that the margin for error in Indianapolis will be exactly zero, none. This is absolutely not a rebuilding year. This is not some transitional phase where a new coaching staff is granted a grace period to figure things out. No way. The expectations in that building are strictly, unequivocally, playoffs or bust.
Because guys, this is the harsh, unforgiving reality staring them in the face. 5 consecutive years of missing the postseason. Half a decade of sitting at home, watching the playoffs from the couch in January, while other teams chase rings. In the modern NFL, patience is a massive luxury, and it's one that very few owners afford their front offices. 5 years without a playoff berth, that breeds a toxic, undeniable level of urgency. It's the exact kind of urgency that creates desperate decisions. Think about it. If the players returning from injured reserve, guys like Daniel Jones, DeForest Buckner, and Charvarius Ward, if they cannot return to their former dominant selves, or if the injury bug bites this team again, this won't just be another disappointing season to brush off. It will trigger a massive, catastrophic teardown of the entire organization. Imagine the visceral reality of that scenario for a second. General managers getting fired, coordinators clearing out their desks into cardboard boxes, star players packing up their lockers in dead silence on the Monday following Week 18, knowing the core they bled with on the field is about to be auctioned off to the highest bidder across the league. Indianapolis could completely shift from talking about Super Bowl contention to becoming absolute fire sale sellers.
Section 2, the untradeable elite core. We have to talk about the foundational talent here. To really understand why the stakes are so phenomenally high, you have to shift your focus to the positive side of the balance sheet for a minute. You have to look at the immense, undeniable, earth-shattering talent forming the foundation of this roster. Because if they do actually decide to sell, man, they have pieces that the rest of the league would empty their entire draft capital to acquire.
ESPN's Bill Barnwell recently mapped out the trade tiers of the NFL. He went through and identified players across the league who are legitimately worth first-round picks. And let me tell you, the Colts have a staggering amount of elite capital on this roster. At the absolute apex of Barnwell's tiers sits Sauce Gardner. Barnwell projects that Gardner would fetch 2 first-round picks on the open market right now, which is exactly what Indy gave up to get him from the Jets in the first place. And the film totally backs it up. We are talking about a 24-year-old with multiple first-team All-Pro nods, possessing truly elite man-coverage skills. This is a corner who consistently grades out in the high 80s in pure coverage metrics. He is capable of mirroring insanely complex post routes, and he can entirely erase the opponent's #1 receiver from the game plan. Gone. Erased. Then you have edge rusher Laiatu Latu. Entering year 3, Latu led the entire team with 8.5 sacks last year. But honestly, it's the microscopic details on the tape that make him terrifying to offensive tackles. Laiatu operates with a pass rush win rate hovering near 22%. That is absurd. His cross-chop move on third down is practically unblockable at this point. He is right on the cusp of becoming a perennial double-digit sack nightmare for the AFC. And finally, you've got tight end Tyler Warren. As a rookie, he commanded a historic 28% target share. He was consistently finding the soft spots in those complex cover 2 shells. He led the entire Colts roster in targets, he earned a Pro Bowl nod right out of the gate, and he is already widely considered a top 5 player at his position league-wide. He has the route-running nuance of a 10-year veteran, and he's just getting started.
But here's the catch. The stark contrast here is between theoretical value and harsh, unmoving reality. Yes, their theoretical trade value is astronomical. You could literally rebuild an entire franchise overnight with the draft picks these 3 men would command on the open market. Phone lines will be ringing off the hook. But the reality? Indianapolis views these young stars as absolute, foundational untouchables. They are the anchor in the storm for this franchise. Even if the 2026 season goes completely up in flames and the front office is purged from top to bottom, the chances of Gardner, Latu, or Warren being traded are slim to none. 0. They are the pillars holding up the stadium. The franchise will deal away high-priced veterans long before they even think about parting with these 3. They are the exact reason you endure the overwhelming risk of this current roster. You endure the pain because the ceiling of these 3 players is a Super Bowl ring.
Section 3. The Buckner Investment. Let's examine a very costly asset. We move to a player who perfectly represents the Colts' current state. He is a massive, game-wrecking asset, wrapped in a growing, terrifying liability. $46 million. Just let the weight of that number sink in for a second. $46 million. That is the massive 2-year financial extension the Colts committed to their 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle, DeForest Buckner, back in 2024. It is an absolutely astronomical sum of money allocated to the absolute engine of their defensive line. But here is where the narrative takes a dark turn. Over the last 2 seasons, Buckner has missed 12 games. Earlier this offseason, the physical toll on his body was so severe, so agonizing, that he actually contemplated retirement before ultimately deciding to return for his 11th NFL season. Think about that. You were paying $46 million to a player who almost walked away from the sport completely.
But despite the missed time, the respect, and honestly the fear he commands from offensive linemen across the league remains absolutely lethal. An anonymous NFL defensive line coach recently validated this exact sentiment to ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler. He stated flatly, and I quote, "No real drop-off in his play. He's still elite, just older and injured." I really want you to notice those 2 words side by side, elite and injured. It is the ultimate paradox in professional sports. He even received honorable mention votes for the top 10 defensive tackles in the league by coaches and executives this year. Because when he is actually on the field blowing up the A-gap, he remains an absolute force of nature. He is a nightmare to game plan against.
So the absolute crucial point here is weighing these 2 realities against each other in the most granular, detailed way possible. On one side of the coin, you have his elite production. Even in a severely shortened 2025 campaign, Buckner averaged 3.6 pressures per game. That is dangerously close to the 3.8 pressures he averaged during his 2020 All-Pro season. He logged 4 sacks in that short window, putting him on pace for near-elite numbers if he had just stayed healthy for a full year. But then, you look at the devastating reality of his physical decline. His 2025 season ended with neck surgery, and the human element here is deeply, deeply sobering. Buckner revealed that in the weeks following the surgery, suffering from severe nerve damage, he couldn't even physically lift his own children. Imagine the toll that takes on a man. Because of this trauma, heading into 2026, he has to completely alter his biomechanics. This is a huge deal. He can no longer fire off the ball with a low crown to generate that immediate leverage we are used to seeing.
To protect his cervical spine, to literally protect his future quality of life, he has to play with a higher pad level. Now, if you know football, you know what this means. It means exposing his chest plate to 320-pound double teams. It means sacrificing his devastating trademark bull rush. He will now have to rely entirely on hand fighting, swim moves, and secondary techniques to shed blocks. Can a 32-year-old defensive tackle change his fundamental mechanics in year 11 of his career and still command a double team in the trenches? The Colts' $46 million investment demands that he does. There is no plan B.
Section 4. The Daniel Jones Dilemma. The ultimate linchpin of this entire operation. Which brings us to the absolute most fragile card in the entire Colts deck, the centerpiece, the operator of Shane Steichen's highly complex offense. We need to talk about Daniel Jones.
Tracing the timeline of his 7-year career reveals a brutal, unforgiving toll that the NFL has taken on this quarterback's body. It reads like a medical textbook. In his 7-year career, Daniel Jones has never, not once, guys, suited up for a full, uninterrupted NFL season. He has endured a litany of catastrophic physical trauma. Think back to the horrifying hit that caused a severe concussion early in his career, or the 2021 neck injury that completely ended his season, the non-contact gruesome ACL tear on the turf in Vegas back in 2023, and most recently, a fractured fibula coupled with a torn Achilles on what looked like just a mundane, everyday drop back in the pocket. Look, football is a game of severe attrition, we all know that, but this is a horrifying resume of structural damage. The sheer accumulation of scar tissue on this athlete is a massive red flag for any front office. And yet, his shattered health isn't even the only ghost haunting Indianapolis right now.
We really have to look incredibly closely at the tape from the games right before that season-ending Achilles tear, because it paints a very concerning picture. Because in Week 9 against the Pittsburgh Steelers and Week 10 against the Atlanta Falcons, the impenetrable armor of Indy's offense suddenly violently cracked open. Defenses seemed to completely catch up to Steichen's game plan overnight. The Steelers came out and brought relentless cover zero blitzes, the interior guards were getting blown backward off the snap, and crucially, Jones's processing failed him. Instead of reading the hot routes and identifying the Mike linebacker like a veteran should, his eyes dropped to the rush. He panicked. The regression was dramatic. It was hard to watch. In just that 2-game span, failing to navigate the collapsing pocket, he threw 4 interceptions. He fumbled the football 6 times under heavy duress, and he was sacked a bone-crushing 12 times. 12 sacks in 2 games? That is a car crash every single quarter. The blueprint to rattle him, to speed up his internal clock and force catastrophic mistakes was suddenly exposed on film for the entire league to see, right before his body gave out.
The contrast of this season is just staggering, and it proves exactly how utterly dependent the entire franchise is on him functioning at a high level. With Daniel Jones under center, putting up these unexpected, highly efficient numbers in his first year in Steichen's system, the Colts lived in an absolute football utopia. They were 8-2. They were the deadliest offense in the league. Jones was a legitimate MVP candidate on his way to his first Pro Bowl. Everything was clicking. Then came the Achilles tear, and the absolute bottom fell out of the franchise. The Colts spiraled into an embarrassing, humiliating 7-game losing streak. They finished 8-9. Phillip Rivers and Riley Leonard came in and couldn't remotely operate the timing-based route concepts at an NFL level. The offense ground to a halt. The takeaway here is stark. If Jones is not on the field, fully healthy and processing efficiently, this team cannot win, period. It is that terrifyingly simple.
Section 5. The 2026 season outlook. Let's talk about this razor-thin margin. Let's synthesize all of this. What does this incredible balance of elite, untouchable talent, and extreme, terrifying physical risk actually mean when the whistle blows for the upcoming year?
The path to a championship, or hey, even just surviving the intense playoffs or bust mandate from ownership, is razor thin. It requires absolute perfection. First, Daniel Jones must not only stay on the field for 17 games, he must perfectly replicate that early 2025 efficiency. He has to prove to the entire league that the mid-season meltdown against the Blitz was just a blip on the radar, not the permanent blueprint to defeat him. Second, DeForest Buckner must successfully adapt his altered post-surgery technique and remain the elite anchor of the defensive interior, without the use of his best pass rush moves. He has to reinvent himself on the fly in year 11. And finally, the roster at large must completely avoid the devastating injury bug that claimed vital secondary players like Charvarius Ward last year. Everything has to go right. If they can't right the ship, if the injuries pop back up, Indianapolis will spiral into an offseason with more massive question marks than they can possibly answer.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought to chew on. Football is the ultimate team sport. We all know that. But
Can an elite superstar-studded roster truly survive the marathon of an NFL season if its $46 million defensive engine is anchored by a tackle fundamentally recovering from nerve damage in his neck, and its high-octane offense lives or dies entirely on the shoulders of a quarterback who has never, not once, finished a single full season? The 2026 Indianapolis Colts are a spectacular, incredibly expensive house of cards, and if you listen closely, the wind is already starting to blow. Thank you for diving into the tape with us today. This has been an explainer from NFL Nexus. If you want more cinematic deep dives into the unseen narratives of the National Football League, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this explainer, and comment your thoughts below. Can the Colts survive this monumental season? Are they pretenders or contenders? Let me know. And remember, you can support the channel directly by becoming a member today. Join the Nexus family. Until next time, keep your eyes on the Nexus.